Hi, everybody. So I just got back from seeing The Last Jedi's latest Star Wars film, and it's 3 a.m., and I just thought, why not? Everybody else has put out their Last Jedi reviews, so I just put out my initial thoughts like I do sometimes. This is not a review. I'm not going to give a grade or anything, but I'll tell you some of the things just off the top of my head, what I liked and what I didn't like. And there's a lot to unpack in this movie. I really feel like I'm going to have to see it a couple of times to give you my real thoughts about it. And so I'm still kind of digesting it, but here's some of the first things that I liked and didn't like about it. So the first things that I liked about it is that there were some amazing sequences that I think any Star Wars fan is just going to love. And there's a lightsaber fight that is really great. I thought everything with, I don't think this is a big spoiler because you get a taste of it in the trailer, but everything with Kylo and Rey I thought was great. And I should say going into this that I loved The Force Awakens, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a bit. But I thought anything with the two of them was wonderful. I thought both Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley were so good. They actually had this sort of chemistry together, I think, that I wasn't sure about that they would have, and I was really nervous about that, but it totally worked for me. I thought it was great, and that's a pretty big part of the movie. And I also really liked some new character development that we got with Poe Dameron. I liked most of the stuff with Luke and Leia, and certainly was emotional to see Leia and Carrie and get to kind of say goodbye in a way to her, since she's passed on. So that was emotional, and that was very good. It's very well made. It has some beautiful production design. I thought John Williams' music was one of his best for this series, which is saying a lot, but it was great, I thought. And so overall, I was very entertained. I think it's a very enjoyable film. I think that this will test, I think, what type of Star Wars fan people are. Because I was not a big fan of Rogue One. I didn't think it's not a terrible movie, but I thought it was pretty muddled, pretty confused, and I just didn't care about any of the characters. So I didn't really like Rogue One very much. This is definitely better than Rogue One, but there's always been this debate in the Star Wars community about whether is Star Wars fantasy or Star Wars sci-fi. I don't see how anybody after viewing this movie can make the argument that Star Wars is sci-fi and not fantasy. This movie, to me, stepped into fantasy more than any other Star Wars movie ever has. It was, I don't want to give anything away, but there's certain scenes where characters do things that are basically like superpowers. And I think that the Force, I always saw the Force as more of a priesthood power, kind of like what you see in the Bible, where the prophets can part the Red Sea. They have these powers because of their belief and because of God and whatever. And that's how I always took sort of the Force as being a sort of this priesthood power. And I think that this recent 3 films have really sort of taken a different take on the Force. Like whether it's the blind guy in Rogue One that just like went through a whole range of blaster fire because of the Force and just kept reciting it, and that was really weird to me. But that's definitely more sort of the way the Force is used here, as opposed to more of a power that's more of like I don't know. It's just different, like than a priesthood. I can't think of how to explain it. And there's just certain things that happen that are more like a superpower, more like a superhero. And that's fine. It's not bad. It's just different. And it's just it's a very fantasy feeling to this movie. Things that happen, the way people are able to like transport themselves and have these different powers and stuff. It's just very much more like a fantasy film than like a sci-fi film. And so, the reason why I love The Force Awakens, and New Hope was always my favorite, because after I saw it, I was just like, yes, I wanted to cheer. It's more of, as opposed to a fantasy film, New Hope and Force Awakens are more like sort of pulpy space adventures, where, it's just through like being sort of gritty and being, it's just sort of the heroes, there's bad guys, there's good guys, and they all these different characters, and in the end you're like, yeah, woohoo! And that's more what I like. And that's more my style. But this is definitely more in the like sort of big fantasy kind of thing. And that's just tends to not be my favorite, but it's not bad, and I enjoyed it. So if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. There's a couple things there, like the Laura Dern character I wasn't a huge fan of. I don't know. She wasn't that well written, I don't think, her character. And I think there are a couple other plot lines, particularly with, I liked Rose and I liked Finn, but what they were doing, I felt like didn't quite work. It was kind of, I don't know, but it was okay. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, overall, it definitely feels a little self-indulgent. It's definitely could be a little tighter, and I really feel like, especially The Force Awakens is very tight, and so it's just like, yeah, you're just sort of pumped the whole time. At least when I watch it, I just want to cheer, and it's just my kind of thing. And I also get emotional, like you really get those emotional things. And this was a little fragmented, a little bit too long, but it was beautiful. I really liked the character development in certain characters. I thought that all the actors were there to play. It was very well acted. I think that some of the things that they did were really exciting. Like I said, anything with Rey and Kylo, I totally loved. And that's a lot of the movie. And the stuff with Luke was really interesting, and that's part of the stuff I'm going to have to process and keep thinking about. BB-8 was like a rock star in this. I love BB-8. It was the best. So cute. And so, yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's just a fantasy movie. And so you have to decide, you just have to know yourself and what your like tastes are. So if you love fantasy, then I think you will love this. If you don't really like fantasy that much, then I think you'll like it. You'll have a good time, but it won't be like your favorite. So there you go. That's my thoughts on The Last Jedi. Definitely go see it and decide for yourself. I mean, right now I'd probably give it like a B. I enjoyed it. It was a good movie. Maybe even a B+. I don't know, somewhere in there. But if, like I said, if you love fantasy movies, I think you will really dig it, because it has a lot of really creative, really inventive kind of stuff. And I think if you thought that The Force Awakens was too predictable, then you'll probably really like this, because it definitely takes some risks. But I just like that more sort of pulpy adventure kind of story. So that's just me. But it was I enjoyed seeing it. So I'm glad that I saw it, and I look forward to talking about it more. We're going to have a podcast with Abby and Jeremy, and it should be really fun to talk about. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to do it on Saturday. I don't know if I'll be ready on Saturday, but I'll keep you posted on when that's going to happen. So let me know what you thought of The Last Jedi. Please try to keep it spoiler-free in the comment section. And thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you later. Bye.